Hello, Facebook land. Welcome to Jon Ferrian Live. Here we are tonight. What are we? It's not quite January yet. We're just wrapping up 2019, getting ready to live large in 2020. Do we have anybody rolling in? It always takes a few seconds here to get that live feed rolling. Oh, yeah, we got viewers rolling in now. Come on, folks. Who's coming in? Who's coming in? Let us know where you're watching from tonight. Drop it in the comments. Tell us where you're watching and what's going on. It's an exciting episode tonight, folks. We got Bret Rasmussen tuning in live from his house in Idaho. Boom. And as we got this going, all right, we got Darren King, living large. I see the first comment dropping in. Darren, we had a fantastic kids ride today with the Cascade Drift Skippers. Really appreciate you putting that together. That was fantastic. Got Michael Flower watching. We've got William Rutherford watching. Hey, buddy. Look at that. Trevor Thompson, Michael Flowers coming in from Phoenix, Arizona. Boom. Everybody is stoked for this show tonight, everybody. Man, make sure you share this out. For you guys who haven't watched Jon Ferrian live before, if that's possible, we've been doing this for a year and a half, more than a year and a half, probably a year and 3/4 pushing now. And we're talking sled safety, education, growing the sport. Coming to you live from Washington State. I'm originally from Minnesota, grew up riding sleds back in the Midwest, and started out Montana, Idaho, all those places, riding mountains for the first time ever back in like 2007, and then ended up out here in Washington State back in 2012 with a job transfer. Got involved in the Washington State Snowmobile Association, got involved with the Northwest Avalanche Center, all kinds of cool things we got going on out here in Washington. And without any further ado, I want to tell you a little bit more about our contest, right? So last week, when David Wagner was on from the Iron Dog Racing, we were giving away a Woody's, was a Bubba Burgers. It was a sweatshirt and stuff too. It's been such a crazy week. I've had the week off. I've been riding every day. I didn't get a chance to get that drawn yet. So either probably tomorrow night, I'm going to do that. So last week's show with David Wagner, we had the Bubba Burgers with Woody's as our sponsor of that. And we got, again, a sweatshirt, some coupon for some burgers and whatnot. That'll be given away tomorrow night for last week's show. But tonight I want to talk to you about Fly Racing Share and Win. This week we're going to be giving away a t-shirt of your choice. So my recommendation is this one right here, the Action jersey. You can see up on the left side of the screen. That's about a $40 value. I've actually been wearing these. I love these shirts, guys. And just for watching tonight, just for sharing and winning, make sure you follow Fly Racing Snow both on Instagram and Facebook. And again, just for sharing the show, folks like Fly's Racing wants you to learn and be educated about snowmobiling and what's going on in the sport, and get in on the contest. So share this out. And in just a second here, I'm going to unveil Mr. Rasmussen. So Bret, we're going to come back to you here in 3, 2, and 1. And there you are, sir. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing just great. It's glad to be good. It's great to be on your show again, John.
You're very welcome. You're one of our few repeat guests that we've had on, and we almost had you on 3 times, right? Because it was literally your show that we were about to do that night when we first discovered Facebook completely just blew us out of the water, and we didn't have a way to go live directly on Facebook Live anymore. And so I know you were super disappointed about that. I was super disappointed about that. And I'll turn back over to you just for a minute. Like, let us know what happened to you that night. And we were trying to get the Russia story, kind of told about what was going on there too. So why don't you just kick us off with, you got that filled and, what we were going to do. Let's just chime in on the Russia story for just a few minutes.
Yeah, well, at the moment that Facebook let us down, then at that point in time, I was looking for eligible participants to go with me to Kamchatka in Russia. And so I was really looking forward to spending some time with you and talking about the trip. But at this juncture now, I've got a complete group. I actually have people from all over North America. I've got a couple guys from Edmonton, a couple guys from California, I don't know if anybody might be watching, but a couple guys from Washington, even some people from Michigan, Wyoming, Idaho, even, and so I've got a well-rounded group. Really excited to take this group with me to Russia and see all the sites. It's going to be a really fascinating trip. We're spending. I guess I could go ahead and just tell a little bit about the excursion. Once we arrive Kamchatka, we'll be staying at a resort location, and then the morning we leave. We've got a 120-kilometer trip before we reach our ship, and we're going to visit 3 volcanoes along the route. This is a route that hasn't necessarily been navigated before, and at least by snowmobile. And then that night we'll board the ship and we'll sail south to the Kuril Islands, which are south of the Kamchatka Peninsula. One of the first island that we're stopping at has never been visited by snowmobile before, so we will arrive there 24 hours later and just unload the snowmobiles, and I don't know if we'll have enough daylight at that time to do any exploring, but for sure the next morning we will, and we'll spend the good part of the day on that island and looking around, and I don't know what we're going to find, John. It's going to be really interesting.
You maybe find a long lost dinosaur or some new animal species like a platypus. Remember the first time we were doing some fact and crap stuff the other night here at the Ferrian Family Funhouse, and we learned that the platypus, everybody thought it was a hoax the first time somebody discovered it and found it, and maybe you'll be the one to discover the next platypus of the world, right?
You never know. We'll be ready for anything.
Exactly. Yeah, no, that sounds like a killer trip. And again, I was super bummed when we didn't get connected that night. And I was like, of all the guests that I could have had Facebook screw me over with, had to be Bret Rasmussen. Man, I was disappointed that night. So
we'll get even with them.
Oh, exactly. We'll have to break the internet tonight and show them who's boss. So Bret, one of the things that I'm super grateful for is, folks like yourself, right? I mean, this is me bragging on you for a few minutes here, but, I've gotten to know a lot of great people in this industry. And, as I've met you guys, folks like yourself at, Heydays and all these different snow shows, you come out here to Washington each year. And, there's certain people that just stand out in the industry as, some of the top riders in the industry, people who are making a difference out there with folks, like yourself doing Ride Rasmussen Style. And, I look up to you as much as anybody in the industry. And for me to have you, reach out to me and be able to willing to accept my calls back and forth, to have you back on the show, like, to me, that's a huge honor. And I guess I would just love to have maybe you give me kind of your perspective on, why you even consider this. Like, why would you come on a show like this, Facebook Live, Jon Ferrian Live here, to talk to this audience? What is it that maybe compels you that you feel like we're maybe making a difference here?
Well, I guess I don't have anything specific reason, John, but I'll tell you that in this day and age of social media, if you're not doing everything you can do with social media, you're losing out, because there's so much data, there's so much material out there on the internet. And if you're not in front of a camera, if you're not in front of your audience, every opportunity you get, then you're just giving up an opportunity. And I've been watching your show a little bit over the course of the last year or so, and I think it's great. I don't know who your specific audience is, but I know that the people that are watching are getting some great information, and I'm happy to contribute to that. And I hope that I do contribute, and that we can get some information out to the people, some good solid information, and it's not fake news when we're doing it.
That's awesome. And to me, your comment about being fake news is what I love, because literally, I'll reference a few things here. Is this is live, people, right? So Bret and I, with this new software that I'm using, him and I are on a Skype call right now. He's experiencing a Skype call on his end. I'm filtering that through some software, and then we're going Facebook Live right now here. And great slash poor internet signal and all. Bret lives in a very rural area of Idaho and uses satellite internet. And so part of the reason we have limited video quality coming through is because this is a real live show. If him and I wanted to record something, prep it, make it all look pretty, so be it. But this is the real deal, whether it be on my side or on your side. And we love it when people are asking questions. We love it when people are adding comments. We're just grateful for everybody to come on in. So, all right. So why don't we dive into a little bit about the Back to School series, Brett? I know, I think it was a little over a year ago when you and I first did our first show, you were just announcing your Back to School series was about to hit, and it had just hit, I think, that week. And so, let's fast forward to about a year now and chat about it a little bit and let us know how it's going, how they've been received, and kind of what your vision for it is going forward.
So the Back to School series has been a huge success. We've got a big following on YouTube. For any of those listeners out there that haven't had the opportunity, it's the Ride Rasmussen Style YouTube channel, and our channel followers have grown something like 1,000% since we first started going. So we've got huge growth, and we're excited to continue that growth. We kind of took the summer off. It's a much bigger job than I anticipated, collecting footage and doing edits and getting them posted and up so that the viewers can watch. And it's all free. That's what's exciting. And so I depend on sponsors to help us with the financial burden to make this all happen. But in addition to the Back to School series, which is basically a backcountry technical rider technique instructional series, we've also come out with a few new series, including Tech Tips, where we talk about tips to help you with working on your snowmobile, changing tracks, clutch tuning, preseason maintenance, that sort of thing. And then we're doing a series specifically on all about the gear, where we're doing gear and clothing reviews, and then we have another series where we're featuring some of the riders that I ride with, and these include Ride Rasmussen Style instructors as well as Skidoo ambassadors. And so we've got a pretty well-rounded YouTube channel, and I'm excited to keep growing it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So that was one of the things, I think last time I saw you, it was probably at the Puyallup Snow Show, and I told you this in person, I'll just share it out publicly too, is I really appreciate the fact that you're including voices and perspectives from people across the industry, not, just one person standing there, sharing their position, their story. And, it's very similar to what I try to do here too, is like, as me, I've got a lot of things on my mind, a lot of things to say, but what I love doing is getting folks like yourself who are subject matter experts in your own field and having you speak to your story, or if somebody else has a story that they've experienced something firsthand, them sharing their story and me just being that conduit to share that information out. And it really makes for a well-rounded, discussion to be able to get through there. And Brett, I just want to share with you, I'm able to see the comments coming in from Facebook here, and we got a lot of great comments, people saying that they love the show, referencing, your Back to School series. Other folks are saying, I watch those over and over again. Darren King, a buddy of mine, says, I love Ride Rasmussen videos. They're awesome. They've helped me introduce several people to sledding and improve my skills. So as we all are trying to get other people into the sport, a lot of times we're pointing them to video series like what you're making. So it's a really handy, place to be able to kind of point people to get tips on different things. So.
Perfect. Well, we'll just keep doing it. We've kind of limited our writing series this year, but for the viewers that are listening, we do have some in the queue. So you'll be seeing some more writer instruction videos coming out in the next week. So just stay tuned for that.
Yep, that's awesome. And then another very specific comment here I'll share with you too. Again, a friend of mine, but his whole family was up with me today. We're doing a kids ride for our snowmobile club, and I'll read you verbatim what he wrote here. It says, "I love that you have different people on the videos, referencing what I just mentioned. And then since I have daughters, having the ladies on the show, showing their skills resonates with the kids also. So having folks like Ashley Chafin on there sharing her tips and skills and stuff as well too is very inspirational and motivational to young ladies like Darren's girls." So
perfect. We'll just keep it up. We actually have a filming session coming up here in the next 2 weeks where I'll have an opportunity to include some of the Skidoo ambassadors again. So hopefully awesome. We get some good footage with them, and we can get those edits up and out before the end of the year.
Yeah, that's awesome. So speaking of your Skidoo ambassadors, that was one of the things in my notes here I wanted to talk about tonight too, is the snow show series, right? And that always starts with heydays in September, and then you've gone through a whole series of snow shows that are kind of now behind us. But I just want to take a minute and reflect back on a couple of key moments that I personally recall, and have you kind of talk to what you've been doing during the snow shows, kind of what your goals are during that time frame, and maybe what you have in store for next season. But I think back to heyday specifically. You guys have your whole Skidoo booth that you have there, and you guys are there manning the booth a lot. But all of a sudden there was this one moment that I'll just call shenanigans, and it had to do with you and Mr. Nerona, and I think it was Carl Kuster. You guys rolled into the Skidoo area on an old, what was it, a 1968 or 69 Skidoo Alpine. You had your helmets on. It was quite a fun. Describe that moment. Like, how did you guys get into that situation where you were going through the swap meet area and just started doing a little shopping? So just talk us through what happened that day, because that was a hilarious moment. I love being there to capture all that.
So that was kind of a lot of fun. It's too bad we don't have some pictures of that moment to put up right now. But what Skidoo did is they split us up into 3 different teams, I believe, and gave us each $100, or maybe it was a couple $100, and challenged us to go out into the swap area. And if anybody's ever been to heydays and witnessed what actually goes on in the swap area, it's an indescript. It goes forever and ever, acres and acres and acres and acres of junk. And our challenge was to go out with the money that we had been given and come back with the best purchase. And I don't know if we were actually judged and given a winner or not, but just the experience itself made everybody a winner. And I can't remember specifically. I think Nerona was on my team, and whoever else there. There you go. There's our purchase right there. Twin track, single ski, Alpine. Can't even remember what year it was. And yeah, you can see the spare belts hanging on the gas tank cap there. But we made
this
awesome
was my
purchase.
favorite. This is my favorite picture, and if you look closely on the windshield of that snowmobile, what do you see?
Yeah. Hang on, let me get my glasses on. Live large. Yep. Hashtag live large.
That's a live large,
awesome.
Jon Ferrian.
You see the trophy in my hand. I actually purchased that for $1.
Nice. And you probably earned it, every piece of it. Now that was that was quite a moment. So as you guys rolled up on that Skidoo, Nerona goes like, "John, slap one of your stickers on the front of that Skidoo. We'll get some pictures." That was fun. Yeah, and I think that's what I love is these ambassador sponsorships and different things that happen. In many cases across the industry, I think people take themselves pretty darn seriously, right? And one thing I love about the Skidoo team is that you guys just flat out have fun, whether it be through this kind of stuff at Heydays, that whole series that you guys made, what was it called? It was that little video series that I don't think you were in it personally, that I don't really recall anyway, but I know Tony Jenkins in it, Ashley, it was that little video series that they did. What was that called again? I don't remember. You
Yeah,
don't even,
the mountain, whatever it was.
yeah, it
You're
was
right. I
Escape,
wasn't in it, or I remember the name.
yeah,
Escape.
Escape Mountain. Yeah. But it was again, it was kind of fun. It was, semi-serious, but you could tell it was all just in good fun, and people were having a good time with it too. But I loved kind of the ingenuity that you guys as a team have and the fun that you guys have together. And you can tell, sometimes people get put into a situation, intentionally, and, they have to be there, but right. You can tell when you guys get together, everybody just vibes, the vibes you get off each other and the fun you guys have is always fun to watch. So.
Yeah, we try to have fun with it. We have to.
Absolutely. And then the other part of the snow show series too is I know you come to Puyallup and you do I actually helped coordinate that for you there too. I actually was in charge of the Puyallup show, the back room this year, and we had you do like a Ride Rasmussen style kind of a clinic, if you will. For anybody who hasn't attended one of those before too, I'd love to have you just kind of share like that little seminar, what you do. You take a lot of questions in, and then you just answer questions for folks along the way. But just describe that for everybody a little bit and what you've done with those, because I think they add a lot of value as well at all the different snow shows that you're going to.
Yeah, so what John's talking about at the Puyallup show was a pro panel that we did with the Northwest Avalanche Center, and we just answered questions about avalanche safety and that sort of thing. And different venues have different opportunities. At Salt Lake, I actually managed one of the seminar room. I think I can call it that. And
Yeah.
we did many seminars during the show, throughout the whole show, and where I had guest presenters come in and talk, and I had some local SAR people come in and talked about rescues that they'd made and mistakes that people make when they get in the backcountry, and we make it fun and informational, and I think we've had great success at Salt Lake by doing that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I might add,
go ahead.
At Salt Lake, we streamed all of that on Facebook Live too, so we had actually a pretty great audience online besides the ones that attended the show. So.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic, and it's a very similar kind of format to what we do here on this show, where we get people coming on and sharing information stories. We've had search and rescue folks on as well too. So I love the vibe of that, and the fact that you were quote unquote in charge of that seminar room and kind of helped organize some of those events. And it wasn't just the Bret Rasmussen show. You're doing your best to highlight other important key aspects of what needs to happen in this industry to grow the sport. And that's what I love about you, Brett, is that you're just a class act. You're not just in there self-serving. You're there trying to help make a better place for all of us to be part of. So I appreciate you for doing that.
Well, I appreciate you, and I thank you for that. I don't want to be the only show in town, right? I need some others to step in and relieve me from time to time. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's, a perfect tee up to kind of, what quote unquote is your day job here in the wintertime is Ride Rasmussen Style. And it's definitely gone down the path of, the riding skills and the riding clinics, which I encourage you to talk about here for a few minutes. And then let's also highlight to your avalanche awareness and safety classes that you're doing. Let's just highlight kind of your classes. And then I know we wanted to share a little bit about kind of your viewpoint of where the industry is going, right? I think, I'll just paraphrase real quickly. For me is, I've seen where people have gone literally just for riding skills only, and yourself, Chris Brandt, Matt Enns, I mean, the list goes on and on, Dan Adams, all of these pro riders out there doing these different clinics are now incorporating avalanche awareness and safety as well into their training classes. And, I'd love to have you highlight both what you're doing in the clinics as well as the safety stuff, and then where you kind of see the industry continuing to evolve into, from your perspective as people are coming to you looking for that expertise.
So our Ride Rasmussen Style riding classes are conducted in West Yellowstone. We run classes daily throughout the wintertime, and you can join us at any time for a Ride Rasmussen Style clinic. And we're permitted through Yellowstone Arctic Yamaha by the Forest Service, and so that's how we're able to do that and keep peace with the Forest Service, and we've got actually a really great relationship with them, and they really appreciate the safety that we portray. It's by taking a rider skills training class, you become a safe companion, or a companion that you can depend on. So there's still, in today's world, there are people that go out alone, believe it or not. There are people that go 2 by 2, which is better than alone, but two people are, by themselves is really not a safe group. You need 3 or 4 ideally to be a safe group in the backcountry. But I've said this before, and I'll say it again. The single best tool that you can have with you in the backcountry is your companion. And if you don't have a companion that you can trust and count on to save your life, you can easily die in the backcountry. As soon as you leave the beaten path, you put yourself at risk, and so that's what we do at Ride Rasmussen Style, is train your companion. So you might be the best rider in the world, but if your companion's not a rider, he's not going to be able to get up the mountain and dig you out of an avalanche when that time comes. So do yourself a favor, buy your companion a Christmas present, and send him to our class.
There you go.
But I say that jokingly, but in all seriousness, it doesn't matter how big your group is, really. The weakest link in your group is the guy that you need to adjust your travel plan to. Adjust your travel plan to his riding ability so that you can all come out safely. At Ride Rasmussen Style, we've gotten involved with ARI, who is a Avalanche curriculum provider, and we have actually been helping ARI in developing a motorized curriculum program. And over the course of the last probably 4 years now, it's kind of been a development program where we've been improving the curriculum, and now this year we actually have a real motorized curriculum, and I'm excited to announce that we're doing ARI Level 1 classes every other week throughout the winter, and we've completed one. We did one in December, and we've got a Level 2 class coming up in a week, I believe. Starts the week of the 12th. Whenever that is, and then we've got a number of Level 1 classes coming up throughout the year, as well as rescue classes, and you're only as safe as the skill set that your companion has. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, that's so true. And, I think, I'll just pile on to a little bit of what you're saying there too. I know, here in Washington State, I'm coordinating and hosting a lot of rides for the clubs, and we intentionally set up the rides for beginner level, intermediate level, and then we do a few advanced level rides, and it really is about making sure that everybody in the group is able to ride to the level of kind of the weakest link, if you call it that, right? And if we're going out on a beginner ride, we're going to make sure that it's beginner level terrain. A lot of times we stick to the trails and the open meadows. And then, yeah, once we're to those areas, the advanced or the intermediate riders that maybe are joining us, there's areas adjacent to there that they can go off to, but we're going to make sure that everybody has the ability to kind of go to those areas safely. And then there's other times where you plan maybe a ride and you have somebody show up and their skill level's not quite where you thought it would be. And so, yeah, you have to kind of reel it back and pull it back for the safety of that individual and the group overall, so that you're not putting yourself in over your head. So to your point, I think, it's something I've been a big advocate for over the years too, is, your riding skills definitely is part of the safety aspect of the sport. Is your quote, I'll just reinforce it, is the better rider you are, the safer rider you are, because you're going to now be able to navigate into something and turn it around and get it back out. I was just on a beginner ride just yesterday with a brand new family that was on trail sleds, and somebody went off the trail over the ravine. And because we had somebody with some riding skills, you could turn it around and get it back out there. It became almost a non-issue. But had it been only beginners on that ride, they would have spent hours and hours trying to figure out how to get that thing out of the trees. So it was kind of a hot mess, but we got it out pretty quick. So.
Yeah, or they don't get it out and they end up spending the night.
Exactly.
That happens too. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Cool. So what else do we, as far as your, I think you've probably kind of covered it, but I just want to make sure we don't miss an opportunity here, is, your view of where do you feel like the industry is going to continue to go when it comes to, the safety aspect of the sport being tied back into, things there too. And again, I kind of feel like you've touched on what you're doing specifically, but do you kind of have a vision or kind of a feeling of the direction the industry is going to continue to go to? We haven't already covered it.
Yeah, so we're with our Avalanche awareness training and skills training. We're trying to change a culture. The motorized culture doesn't specifically know how to deal with avalanche education. They, for the most part, motorized users shun education. I don't know if they feel like they're 10 foot tall and bulletproof or just what the situation is, but whenever there's a fatality perhaps, or even a close call to someone, then all of a sudden they come to the realization that, maybe I do need some training. And I think the trend is definitely for getting more avalanche training in the motorized segment. But the reality is we're changing a culture, and it doesn't change overnight. It takes a long time. If you look at human-powered users or non-motorized, and they're good guys. They really are for the most part, but they shun people who are not educated. If you're a skier in the backcountry without any kind of avalanche education, you're really looked down upon, and that's not the case in the motorized industry. And at some point, I hope that it starts to make more difference, or at least come to some degree of light that if you're going to be in the backcountry, you need some education. It'll save your life or your buddy's life.
No, absolutely the truth. And even in I'll call it the last 5 years, seeing the transition from where we've been to where we are. I can vouch for what I'm seeing in the community here in Washington and other places I've seen where we're going the right direction. But I absolutely agree with you that we're still very much behind the game when it comes to, the skier culture versus the sledder culture. And, I have a front row seat to that situation when I'm being on the board of directors for the Avalanche Center here. Is, the majority of the folks who are supporting the Avalanche Center and are showing up in these training classes through the years are the non-motorized community. And we've made a big jump from where we were to where we are now, but we still have a long road ahead of us to get on par with where the other user groups in the the backcountry community are already at. So I 100% spot on. Agree with you.
There's a lot of roadblocks. If you're going to own a snowmobile, you've got to have a job, right, to pay for it. And
yep.
And so if you've got a job and a snowmobile, now you want to go ride it, but you only have so many Saturdays in a winter to take advantage of that. And I think part of the reason for not doing education is because you're going to take up 3 of my snowmobile days to get a level 1 class behind me. And I think that's one roadblock. There's probably a lot of others. There's a bit of a cost associated with it too.
Yeah.
And I'll address that cost deal in a moment. But we make it fun. These classes are fun. There's a level 1 class is for the most part about a day classroom, but there's 2 full days of riding snowmobiles. And what we do is we ride and we look at avalanche terrain, and we talk about avalanche terrain, and we learn how to recognize avalanche terrain, and we learn how to avoid avalanche terrain. If it's a high risk day, and those sorts of things. So what I'm trying to telescope here is that it's not boring. We have fun when we're out on the snowmobiles, and you learn a lot at the same time. So,
yeah.
And then as far as the cost, a level 1 class is $400 for a 24-hour course, which is it turns into a 3-day class. So I think that's really quite reasonable. But we actually have some scholarship opportunities where the Adam Anderson Scholarship Project is awarding some scholarship opportunities for these classes. And so if money is an object or a reason why you are after education, why there are scholarship opportunities available too.
Yeah, and the same up in the Pacific Northwest here. There's a local snowmobile club north of us here, the Northwest Glacier Cruisers, who I won't quote the exact number, but I'll tell you in the ballpark over the last year or two, they've given somewhere in the neighborhood of like 7 to 10 level 1 classes away through fundraiser opportunities that the club has been involved in. And, the snowmobile community at these raffles and different events that they're holding throughout the year are raising money for these, and they continue to invest them back into these level 1 scholarships and stuff too. So you're right, the opportunities are there if some people take some time and effort away. And I think too, just putting it in perspective, you think of what the cost of everything in life is nowadays, and there's nothing that's given away for free. And being able to invest some time and effort and money, it makes it a big difference. And here, Bret, there's something I've shared before in previous shows, and I'd love to get your take on it as well. But I'm pretty passionate about this statement, which is my own experience around avalanche education and safety, and my own ability to have more fun riding after getting the education. And what I experienced personally, Bret, was the ability to go from being just paranoid about the backcountry and avalanches and the unknown. When you get out in the backcountry and you start looking around and you think like Bigfoot's just sneaking around the corner waiting to whack you on top of the head at any moment, you ride with a different perspective than when you truly have the understanding and the education of, you know what, I can ride on a high avalanche danger day as long as I avoid avalanche terrain. It's almost that simple, right? But
Yep.
being able to identify avalanche terrain and being able to read and understand the forecast and what to watch out for has provided me the ability to kind of feel confident going into the backcountry on almost any avalanche forecast and go out and have an absolute blast and fun, but doing it with a level of confidence and knowing that I'm not going to just make a dumb decision and put myself somewhere I shouldn't be on a high avalanche danger day, right? But would love your 2 cents on that as well too. So.
Yeah, so in the area that we ride and we take groups out, we ride in avalanche terrain. And for any viewers that are familiar with the Lions Head area near West Yellowstone, it's really avalanchy. But there are a number of safe routes through the terrain that you can take and avoid any kind of risk. And depending on hazard rating, if it's a high day, you don't want to put yourself at risk. You can completely avoid avalanche terrain, but on a considerable day, maybe you can cross an avalanche chute one at a time and be safe by doing it. And you have to measure the risk. You have to make these decisions, and what's the worst thing that can happen if I cross this avalanche chute and an avalanche breaks through? Is it going to be a big avalanche? Is it going to be a little avalanche? If I get caught, is my group going to be able to dig me out? What's the headline going to read? Is it going to say Ride Rasmussen Style instructor killed while in avalanche while leading a group? That's a nightmare I live with. I don't ever want to see that headline, right? And so we're very cautious. We don't want to take our groups into a place where they can be in harm's way, but yet we want to take them where the good snow is and where the good slopes are, and where they can have a memorable experience in the backcountry and be safe doing it. And we're successful in that.
Nice. Well, if you're ready, Bret, I'm ready to shift gears a little bit. I know, and just want to confirm with you, are you ready to move on from the classes and the Ride Rasmussen style stuff too? And I kind of want to get into some top tips for sled setups and riding tips if you're ready.
You bet. Let's talk about it.
All right. Well, let's start first. Let me just paint a picture for you that I see almost weekly up here in the Pacific Northwest, and my experience tells me that it happens everywhere across the country. Everywhere is someone goes down to the dealership, and let's talk tonight specifically about Skidoos, since I know you're the Skidoo ambassador. You ride Skidoos. Mostly I ride Skidoos. I've got an Arctic Cat Alpha 1. Forgive me. I've got one in the garage. But what we're about to talk about, specific to Skidoo, but it really pertains to every sled out there and every dealership out there, is in most cases, when someone picks up their brand new sled at the dealership, they're going to get out of the box the factory settings, which everything is just set to the softest rate. It's 111 all the way across the board. The front end suspension, the rear suspension, handlebars may or may not be set up perfectly based on that particular dealer. And so if you out of the box, knowing that someone's going to have that scenario set up, what are the top 2 or 3 things that you could recommend on just a flat out stock sled to tweak and to adjust to get them at least closer to where they need to be? Let's start with the stock sled, and then maybe let's take it beyond that once we're done with the discussion on the stock, and maybe what are a couple of aftermarket parts that you would recommend that will just elevate that experience a little bit more. And I'm not talking like legit turbos and all that. And I know you're smart enough to know that that's not where we're going with this. It's really just, John Doe, John Smith, Jane Smith picking up their new sled, and, how do we just make it the best it can be out of the box?
So that's a really awesome topic, and I'm going to talk specifically to the expert because that's the latest and newest and most sought after product from Skidoo, and the expert package that comes on the Summit or is available on the Summit is really a pretty good setup right out of the box. There's not a lot of stuff that you need to do to it. There's some things that I prefer to improve it to my taste and my style of riding, but for the all-round user, it's pretty good. The suspension on the Expert, by the way, is the best I've ever seen from Skidoo on a Summit. It's without a doubt the best handling Summit that Skidoo's ever released. It's very well suspended, and as you alluded to, all the settings are on 111, soft, and it's pretty easy to go through the settings and stiffen the springs up. They need to be stiffened up. I'm not a big guy, and I find that it's way too soft, and so I crank the preload up on all of my stock sleds. There's actually, we did a video. I'm not sure if it's been released yet. I think it's probably coming out as early as next week, but it's specific to suspension adjustments for the stock Expert. And we go through the steps that I recommend, including tightening the preload on all the springs all around. We actually let the limiter strap out. The Expert comes with a quick adjust limiter strap adjuster, and if you let the limiter straps, there's 2 straps on there, and if you let them both all the way out, then you have a new long setting. But when you use the quick adjuster, your new short setting is the same as the old long setting. And what this does is it allows you, when you get your sled up on its edge, for the suspension to fall all the way out and touch the snow again. And this by itself makes the balance point of the sled when it's on its edge wider, and helps you to hold an edge while traversing a hillside. And so suspension setup is actually pretty critical. And with the stock suspension, I'm going to say, yeah, it works pretty good, especially if you go through and follow the things that I recommend in our YouTube video. But if you want the top of the line, I've developed over the course of the last 10 or 12 years suspension system. It's a complete suspension. We replace all the shocks and springs, and it's a premium suspension package. It's $2,500, so it's not cost prohibitive, but it is, a pretty major investment. But it completely changes how the sled handles in the backcountry. It makes it a better technical backcountry sled. It's the same package that we put on the standard Summits as well as the Experts. And if you want the ultimate in suspension and handling, that's what you need to be looking at. But back to the basics. Probably the number one thing that you need to check on your brand new sled and your used sled on a regular basis is your belt deflection, drive belt deflection. And this goes unchecked, and it's abused. People, I think, for the most part, probably don't ever check it. But what happens is, and I find every one of my new sleds comes with too much belt deflection. The belt's too loose, and what happens is when the clutch engages, it's not starting out in first gear. It's starting out in second or third gear, and so you need to tighten that belt up just enough so that it does start in first gear and it doesn't creep when it's idling, or sometimes you'll get that nasty squeal when it's idling. That means it's too tight. We have a YouTube video on that. It's really easy to adjust. It's a short video and comes highly recommended. You get lots of bottom end performance improvement by doing that. The other things that I like to do is personally is adjust my handlebars so that they rotate, so that the ergonomics are right, so that my wrists aren't bound up when I'm steering it. I actually like to lower my bars a bit. The Summit has, the Expert package comes with lower bars again this year. I'm still lowering mine about 1.5 inches or so. That's personal preference. Depends on how aggressive a rider you are and how high you are, tall you are. So,
see, Bret, on that subject of the lower handlebar risers, I think it's becoming pretty broadly accepted, the lowering of the risers. I mean, yourself as well as most of the other pro risers out there are preaching it. Can you do a quick, brief description of what the advantage is, right? It's, I think most people, they're thinking like, well, if I have a tall riser, I can pull it over easier, right? And it's contradictory to kind of what you're telling them, right? And so just as brief as you can, just kind of a good description of what the advantages are by going to the lower riser, and not so much just a description of how it's going to feel different, but the actual, I want to say the word technology, but I don't know if that's right, but like, what's physically happening when the riser is lower versus higher? Like, and what advantage is it really truly giving it?
Well, first of all, there's a misconception out there that if you have high bars, you have more leverage to pull the sled over. And that's true to a degree, like perhaps if you're on the shop floor or something. But the reality is, imagine a refrigerator in your kitchen. If you need to tip that fridge over and you reach to the top of the fridge to pull on it, you have no leverage because you can't get away from the fridge. And it's the same concept as a snowmobile. If you reach mid height on the fridge, and if there's some handles that you can pull on, it's easier to pull the fridge over because you can get further away from the fridge, and it improves your leverage advantage because you're further away from it. And so, having said that, if you're pulling on the handlebars, you're doing it the wrong way anyway. You shouldn't be pulling on the handlebars. The technique that we teaches you to counter steer and let gravity tip the sled over. And there should be no effort involved. And we have writing videos that talk about that and go through all the steps and one thing and another. My rule of thumb is this: the lower your bars are, the steeper and more technical terrain you can ride and maintain control of your sled. Okay, and so for an intermediate rider who's not ready to get into really steep technical terrain, he's not going to appreciate as low of a riser as an advanced rider might appreciate. But the bottom line is, the lower your bars, the steeper the terrain you can navigate and have control. And you have to figure out that bar height by yourself.
Yeah, and it's pretty easy with those tall bars, is if you're getting into your point, the technical riding is before you know it, they're in your chest and you now like don't have any maneuverability, versus if they're nice and low, now you still have a lot of room to, freedom to move around the sled is where you need to. So it's awesome.
Right.
Cool. So we've kind of covered both. I mean, I don't know if you were finished or not too, if there's any other sled riding tips you want to just touch on quick. Otherwise, we can move over to maybe any riding tips versus, the sled setup tips.
So just a couple of things really quick.
Sure.
The aftermarket components that I put on my sled, without question, are number one, post forward kit. This moves the post and handlebars forward 2 inches, and it brings the rider up on the sled closer to the weight mass of the sled, and it requires less rider input to change the balance point of the sled, if you will. And it's actually a very affordable upgrade. I think they're $250 maybe for a block kit for that, available from Skins. And in my opinion, that's the single biggest accessory item that you can put on your sled. It'll make the most difference for the buck. The other thing is a brake lever, and Skins makes an aftermarket brake lever for me, and it brings the lever. It's adjustable, so you can adjust it wherever you want, but it brings the lever closer to the handlebar, so it's easy to reach with 1 or 2 fingers, and it has a breakaway feature. So if you happen to go over the bars with your fingers wedged between the grip and the lever, it doesn't break your fingers. Really good feature. I won't ride a sled without it if I have a choice. So.
Yeah, all of my sleds have those on them based on your recommendations. I know a few years ago I was asking you questions about those and ended up buying them for all my Skidoos and love them. And for specifically my wife Edith with smaller hands and getting into backcountry riding as well, it's been a complete make or break situation for her, not being able to reach the brake with 1 finger before. Now she can manage it with 1 brake, 1 finger braking. And yeah, they're fantastic quality products. They're priced appropriately, and like I think I swapped them out each in like 2 minutes. Like it's 1 bolt out,
yeah.
Swap over the emergency brake lever, and literally 5 minutes tops. You've got it swapped out. It's a super easy mod. So.
You bet. Yep. There you go.
All right, sounds good. And then how about like, riding tip? And again, people are going to go to Ride Rasmussen Style. They can go check out all the videos. But for those who maybe if they've never been on seeing any of them seeing any of that yet, which is almost impossible. But like, what would be just kind of a quick, riding tip as far as riding skills, right? I mean, it's the counter steer maneuver. I know is a big one for a lot of people. Let's just talk about maybe, position on the sled, a neutral position versus position 1, 2, and 3. I know you cover that in your videos pretty well, and that feels like probably the right direction we should go with this. But again, let you make that call.
So I'm going to comment on that. We can elaborate more if we have time and want to. But the thing with the new snowmobiles, they come from all manufacturers. The Arctic Cat, Polaris, and the Skidoo, they're building sleds, mountain sleds, that are easier to ride when you get off the trail and when you get into the backcountry. They're designed to be really tippy. And if you're a non-snowmobiler or if you're new to the sport and you get on one of these snowmobiles without any instruction or without any guidance of any kind, you're going to have a really bad experience. You're not going to like them.
Yeah.
You're going to tip over. You're going to get stuck. And it's just not going to be a good outcome if you don't have any prior experience. Now, if you turn the clock back 10 or 15 years, it's a different story. Those 15-year-old sleds, that's when we were just starting to get to the stand-up riding style, the rider forward stuff coming from the manufacturers, and at that point they weren't advanced to what they are now, and a non-snowmobiler could get on those sleds and actually sit on the seat and navigate them down the trail, and maybe have a bad experience, but with a little patience they could actually ride those sleds. The new ones, this isn't the case, and this is good for an experienced rider, but I'm concerned to some degree where we have new riders coming into the sport and they have a bad experience and then they don't go again because it wasn't fun. And so, having said that, I think any kind of instruction, basic instruction, is very important for these riders, and I don't think the industry does a good job at helping new riders to the sport. I don't know where we need to go or what we need to do, but we certainly need to help these riders. And I know there's snowmobile clubs out there that help people with these sort of things, but what I would say to the new, yeah, there you go. Thanks, John. For the new guys out there, what they need to know is we like tippy snowmobiles. We want to get those sleds on their edge and ride them on their edge. And if they don't know that, they can't do it. They can't really figure that out. The sled comes with 2 skis. Why would you ride it on 1 ski, right?
No, exactly.
And so that's the number one lesson. You need to understand, if you're off trail, you need to learn how to ride that sled on 1 ski, get it on its edge. It gives you control. It allows you the ability to carve. You can manage your direction downhill or uphill, and that's what gives you control. It's all about control, and that's where the control comes from.
Yeah, no, and you're right on the money, Brett. And I would tell you that I know it's a rare thing that we have going on up here in the Pacific Northwest, but that's something our specific snowmobile club is really focused in on is, getting new riders out there. We do our beginner rides, and then we, go into intermediate rides. And, there's many people as we go with these club rides is, hey, let's assess where you're at. Let's give you some tips of where you're at. And there's been numerous times where we've been able to take folks that go from not having any way or understanding of how to even counter steer like I'm working with the folks in the Avalanche Center up here and getting forecasters who've rarely been on sleds before and teaching them how to ride them. I did one class last week here. I know you were supposed to come and help with that actually here, and we didn't have any snow at the time that your schedule was free, and so they took their 100th best option after you, which was me, and so now I'm going to go out there. Now I'm going to go out there and help them out. But very quickly, I've got these novice riders figuring out how to get up on one ski and get the machine on edge and how to ride off camber thing. And, that's the same thing we do in our snowmobile clubs and what we're doing up here. And, that's one thing. To me, it's a call to action, right? For this show is you've identified that this is a need in the industry. If we're going to continue to grow this sport and get it out there, there's no way that, every rider out there is ever going to be able to get through Bret Rasmussen's or, Chris Brandt's or Matt Enz's classes out there. It's just not numerically possible, right? And so if snowmobile clubs can kind of help fill at least that beginning part of that gap to get people excited enough then to take that next step and then to go to Ride Rasmussen Style, I think it's a great call out. And there's so many people out there who, they want to get out there, they want it, but they think like snowmobile clubs aren't for them. And so it's kind of a double-edged sword, getting people encouraged to join these clubs to support the sport, and then getting the folks who are in the clubs ambitious enough to get out there and help lead some rides and share their skills and their experience with other riders out there too. And man, we found the sweet spot here, and at least where I'm at, and we've had so much fun with it. But it's because you got guys like me that are passionate about the sport, guys like that are watching the show, Darren King, who put on a kids ride today, Katie Fish, who's watching the show. She was there today with her little babies and kids. I think Katie's kids were, 1 or 2 years old, and another one's like 3 or 4 years old. Again, I'm sorry, I don't know the exact age of kids, but she's bringing them up in the sport, and the families are mentoring each other and they're helping each other out, and it's just an amazing thing to watch. So,
well, the sport will continue to grow, and hopefully, with all the good that you're doing out there, Jon, why we can teach some riders how to have fun.
Yep, and we'll keep pushing them your way too, because there's, again, very specifically, I know there's riders who've come out here, joined our club rides, and then inspired to come out and ride. And I got personal friends who come out to ride with you. I know Carl Korn, Alex Driscoll came out a year or so ago. I've got other friends who've gone out to Dan Adams clinics, and people are going out and doing it. It's not because of what we're doing that is keeping them from going. It's because of what we're doing. It's showing them that they can elevate their skills, just by getting some instruction, and now going out to the professionals like yourself. That's really going to make the big difference, and help them elevate very quickly. So,
well, we don't ride snowmobiles because it's work, right? We ride it because it's fun, and
exactly.
The better skill set you have, the more fun you're going to have.
Yep, exactly. Cool. Well, I think unless you have any other little quick tips or trips, I think we're getting close to running out of time here anyway. So, any final thoughts, any final words you have, Bret, that you want to cover with everybody tonight?
I just want to thank everybody in the audience for listening tonight. It's been a pleasure being on the show, and I hope to see you all on the mountain at some point. I'm headed to Russia here in a couple of weeks for about a month, and I'm going to help some Ruskies with some rider skill instruction while I'm there, and then I'll come back. And in the meantime, while I'm away, I've got my team in West Yellowstone helping out with rider skills training and avalanche classes, and it goes on every day throughout the winter. For more information, check our website at riderasmussenstyle.com. And we'd love to have you join a class, whether it's for rider skills or avalanche training. And I'd love to meet you on the mountain someday too.
Yep, that's awesome. Again, encourage everybody to get out there and sign up. So, Bret, if somebody were to register and sign, like at this point, at any given point, how full are your classes? Are they like booked way out, or can people get in the next several weeks if they were to look for openings, or what does that look like on a normal basis?
We have open days all the time. There are a few days that we're completely full, but and I don't know how clear it is on the website, but if you're interested and you go to the website, take a look, just fill out the registration form, and Holly will get back to you with available dates, and you can get in most days.
Sounds good. So, Bret, I'm going to wrap up the show here, but if you hang on even after we close out, you and I can chat for a few more minutes here. But just want to remind everybody again, if you haven't already, share the show out. And even if you have, share it out to a different location. You can put it on your personal page, club pages, places, your favorite, social media, group that you go into, sledding group, anywhere that you think people are going to find value from, training and education videos like this with Bret. Please share it out, and you're going to be eligible to win this week. Fly Racing, a t-shirt. They've got an action jersey out there, about a $40 value. Just for sharing it, you're going to be eligible to win. And really appreciate everybody. Don't forget to live large, meaning make the most of every day. And God bless everybody. Have a great night. So let's wrap it up.